Okay, so I got the single bolt that was left on the cowling off the cowling, and I've brought the Massey in place here because this is fairly heavy and the fuel tank is half full, and so I could lift it by hand, but I don't want to break anything in the process. So what I'm going to do is grab a come along and come down off the boom with the come along, and then I can lift it gently and procedurally, hopefully without breaking anything like the radiator stem there or anything like that. So that's why we're set up like we are. Kind of nice to have a crane you can boom in place when you need it. So far that's working. I got off of the radiator stem. It's raising the weight. Obviously I have to go pay attention to that. Just thought I'd show. Cricket singing along with wax. Draining radiator fluid. Gotta drain the water jacket so you can take the head off, otherwise you make a mess of everything. Tell you what, the Massey Ferguson sure does make a nice mobile shop, complete with drink holder. You'll notice I'm not drinking alcohol while I'm working on engines, or with heavy equipment booms over my head. Alright, so I've been here disassembling while that's draining. I got the fuel line off the carb. I got the ground off of here. Disconnect all the plug wires. Got that like spark plug rail that runs across off. I got to unbolt the charger mount. And then I can unbolt the head and get it off. It's actually not too bad. And I got to take off the radiator, the other radiator hose once that drains out. But so far it's not horrible. But you know, of course, that's when it gets rough, right? As soon as you say that, because Murphy and his laws. I'm gonna catch that guy one of these days. He's gonna take a pause here real quick. We'll take a look at this head for a couple of reasons. One, you can see that this head was leaking well before I hit the stick and finished it with additional back pressure. I hit a stick with exhaust. I'll show you that in a sec. So I've pulled all 4 spark plugs out, and I'll just show you the plugs before we look closer at the tops of the cylinder there. And they're still in order, so going from back of the machine to front of the machine in the same order. So those first 2 there on the left are nice and clean. Those are burning almost lean. And then those 2 on the right are a little bit gunked up and we're burning kind of rich. I never did get new spark plugs in it. I have the plugs in stock. I just hadn't changed them yet. Just wanted to get farming. But now that I'm doing the head, I will just change them while I'm in here. So I suspect that part of that was the head gasket going bad. Probably was not pulling a good fuel air mixture into the back tube. And you know, just kind of running imbalanced. Hopefully we haven't burned anything out. We'll have a better idea when I get the head off here in a bit. So just from a mechanical perspective here, if you're changing the head on a Ford 9N, this is actually a 2N. I think this is a 1942, that circa. All these are 5/8 nuts. A couple of these, the studs came out with them. They didn't break, they just came out with them, which is fine. The oil filter has to come free. And the number one thing that I noticed here, the one oddball is right over this water jacket. There's an 11/16 on here. I don't know if that's original, if that was something to replace, but just for my own notation, I'm going to note here, I got 3 washers and an oddball here. So just to be able to put it back together correctly. You know, I hope someday get to work on an engine with brand new heads on it, where it just comes off. I don't think I've ever worked on a machine that wasn't really old, and every one of these heads is always just a royal pain in the butt to get free. So I'm working around it with a hammer and gently tapping, and I'm working a couple different pry tools in, and I got some space opened up on the one side. The other side I'm really having trouble getting opened up, in part just because I can't really get to it because of the manifold. I don't really want to take that off because with all that heating and cooling, usually those bolts are kind of brittle. You know, I don't want to end up breaking the exhaust and intake that I have and then having to get a new intake and then you're just down the list. So I'm trying to work around that. So I might end up running home with a couple of the spark plugs and making like a spark plug chain that I can loop between two of these, or maybe a couple of nuts, something like that, that I can screw to these and lift uniformly or relatively uniformly by. And then maybe I could get the cowling, the rest of the cowling out of the way and run the come along down and be able to like gently lift with some pressure. I do have an electric winch. I don't feel like screwing with all that. I don't think I need all that, but it was fun. Yeah, well, you know, they never do come off easy. It's being a real pain in the butt, and I was really having trouble getting in over it to get any kind of lifting power. And also, my back's all messed up, but so I did manage to get the cowling off to the side. That was kind of an ordeal. Had some fuel spill. Didn't really like that situation. Made me a little nervous. I should have pulled the battery out first, but I thought it was going to be okay just lifting up. And then it came very close to shorting the terminals of the battery while there was fuel spilled. So, word of safety advice to anyone: pull the darn battery out of the machine entirely before you do any work on it. Then you don't have that problem. I was fortunate and did not have an issue or a fire, but that was really dumb of me. So don't do stupid. There you go. So I'm gonna go grab another. I have other come-alongs. I'm gonna grab another come-along and see about if I can get a little bit of lift on this. I might give it one more try before I take off, but yeah, I need a break. I need a break. Got back in here with the pry bar and been prying for like a good 15 minutes or so. A few expletives here and there in frustration, but no progress. So I was finally like, you know what? I'm going to try and clear these threads out around the studs because I suspect that that's what's holding it from lifting. So I grabbed the air compressor, which I'm fortunate enough to have one now because I had to buy one for lots of reasons not too long ago. So, and I just came around with the tip and I went around each of these studs and just cleared the space around the studs like that, just to give a burst and clear that little air space, that little pocket. I'll try to zoom in there. Sorry for the horrible camera work here. You see how that space is clear and open now? And those spaces were clogged with rust and dirt and stuff before. So that was holding up. And now I've actually got this head starting to lift up off here for me. And I go around the other side and free it up so we come up evenly. But it's actually coming off, so that's a relief. I hate to tell you boys, but you can eat a lot more than Airwolf till you stop me. Alright, so the head's coming off. I been prying and pecking and tapping and picking and managed to get a flat edge under and kind of work my way along. I had to be careful because the one side came up much easier than the other side. I didn't want to have to take this manifold off. I mentioned that earlier, but I looked at it closer. I thought about taking it off, and then you got to take the charger off. It just becomes like a whole another chain of stuff to take off. So I just worked around it for now, and we've been fortunate enough to get it free. So I'll come around the other side and I'll show you that and talk about it. All right, here we are now where we can look at it a little closer and see a little better. So you can see I've gotten some flat edges underneath. I've been very careful trying not to damage the surface of either the head or the block. Those are machined surfaces and you don't really want to scratch them up. I want that gasket to sit nice and flat, and we want lots of space after we set a gasket cross widthwise between our cylinders and our water jacket and all of those places where there are different pressures. We want to maintain those pressure isolations within those zones. So we have to be careful not to screw up surfaces like that. Anyway, I'm not going to give you a long lecture about it. Just thought I'd mention it for somebody who doesn't know. The air compress thing did work pretty well. I managed to get most of the dirt out, and that gave me the chance to free this up. And as I've been working it back and forth across, I keep going back through and blowing around the hair holes, basically to sort of like chasing the threads, but just to get the gunk out of there. And that's helped enough to get us freed up. I gotta watch my back because I keep railing myself on the backhoe behind me here. So you can see it's nice and loose now, and it's coming up. I'm just trying to bring it up off vertically now. Before I had it one side lift and the other side wasn't lifting, so it was kind of cockeyed. So I had to bring it back down and keep prying until I got the whole thing loose evenly, so we can come up vertically and not end up bending studs or warping the head, or breaking things we don't want to break. So I think we're there now. So it should come off, and then we'll have a look at what's in there. Hopefully everything's all okay, as I think it will be, and we can just clean the head, put the new gasket on, put it back together, and hopefully have a functional machine again until something else breaks, which we know it will. So I've almost got it off. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see anything that way. Whatever. Maybe you'll get a shot of this, maybe you won't. So you gotta kind of like work it back and forth and lift. And you gotta get this piece out. Come on. Spend a month on this. Thank you. All right, so I got the head off. I'm gonna clip out the frustration part where I bashed my fingers and let a few words fly. But it is off. Everything seems pretty okay in here, actually. Valve seats or valves at least all look okay. There's some gunk around those, huh? But I think they'll clean up. I think that's just some carbon and some gunk in there. So I'll probably pull the studs out of the engine here and go around and clean up around the valve seats and stuff at least, and get the carbon out. You can see where these two cylinders were pulling oil up from the block into the cylinders. And these two, looks like we were running on basically 2 cylinders for power wise. So it'd be really interesting to see what this machine does power performance wise with a new head gasket and spark plugs in it. Should run like a real champ. I'm very relieved to have that off. That's been a struggle and a nightmare. I worked on that most of yesterday and today. Boy, when they're on there, and something as old as this, and I don't think this has ever had a head gasket done on it. I'll have to ask my friend Matt, but I don't think so. I think this is straight from the factory to me, first head gasket repair. So anyway, it's a good start, and I need a coffee break and a sanity break. And I'm gonna come back and try and get this rocked out. So there we are. All right, so this is the head. Now that it's off, should I give you a shot of that too prior to cleanup? I'm gonna take that back with me and clean it up. Get the gasket off it, the old gasket. And so here I am back home with the head off. I'm gonna clean the head up and get the gasket off here where I can do it a little more comfortably. Chill out, listen to some tunes, and de-stress myself a bit. But I wanted to share this story with you. Look at the bugs. These bugs been in my face all day, man. I've been on the brink of bug homicide every 3 seconds. So I finally did get the head off. This has been a frustrating task for me, just given the situation, the time and energy it takes to do it. I have crops I want to be planting, I have other jobs I want to be doing. I have work on the farm I want to be doing, engineering to do. I have literally an endless list of things to do. And there are times I get super frustrated about that. And today was one of those. I did finally get the head off. I was getting a little wired, shall we say, in frustration from working on that in the sun. And I banged my head and my back a bunch of times on the Massey there. So I'm a little bruised up, but I get the head out. I get it in the car. I go to start the car to come home. Very much relieved to come home and take a coffee break. And the car won't start because I had the key on for a little while. I had the radio on so I could have some music. Figured I'd just cheat and use the car, but that cost me because then the car wouldn't start. So I was like kind of frustrated. I didn't feel like taking the battery out of the Massey Ferguson and carrying that over and hooking up the jumper cables to start the car. It's like another project on the side on top of this, right? So instead, I opt to push the car back and roll backward. There's enough slope where it was parked to roll back in reverse. I figured I could pop it. We'd be fine. So at first I start pushing a little bit and it's like it's giving me a hard time rolling. So I give a little more oomph and I get it moving. And I go to climb into it and pull the door shut behind me. And I'm too close to the bush line there. And a bush catches the door and yanks the door backward and rips the door almost halfway off. So now I'm livid. Livid, let me tell you. So I had to just go sit down and have a cigarette, cool down, and not throw and break things because I was pretty ticked off at that point. I just want one thing to go smooth, and it's not happening. So the moral of the story is keep your calm, because I came back after I cooled down and put the jumper cables on, and then the jumper cables wouldn't work. I couldn't get a connection. So then I had to mess with the jumper cables. So I finally got the jumper cables to work with the battery, with the car, so I could start the car. And I figured I'd just take the Massey battery home and charge it while I'm at it. Might as well take something positive out of it. But the moral of the story is every day is a challenge. And every day new challenges come on top of challenges. And the better we are at just remaining calm and working through those challenges, the better off we're going to be, and the better off we're going to feel mentally. I had myself pretty worked up over it, and after I sat down a minute and thought about it, it's really kind of a stupid thing to even get worked up over. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't change it. I have to just work through it. So I hope this advice reaches someone out there, and this is something I've been thinking about very recently. A friend of mine owns a local business around here, and he's got one guy that works for him that's kind of a whiner, and it bothers everybody else in the shop. And it actually made me think to myself, wow, I catch myself whining to myself and to other people sometimes about things. And I have to get better at not doing that, because all it does is annoy everyone else. It doesn't fix your problem, and no one wants to hear you complain about it anyway. So pick it up and run with it. Take it as it lies. Life's going to throw hard challenges at you every day. They'll probably get harder every day, and you'll probably get challenges right on top of those challenges. And the better you come through them, the better off your life is going to be. The smoother things are going to go, regardless of how rough they may become. And you'll be a happier person for it. All right, so I said I was going to quit filming. You know how I am. You don't, but you will eventually, because I just never can stop. I can never stop. Can't put things down. So got that gasket scraped off, lifted off, went over this with a scraper, got the surface cleaned up fairly well. I'm going to go back over it with a wire brush, something like that, and polish it up clean. And then I'll stick a straight edge to it, make sure it's still straight and square. I don't think I messed things up too bad. I got a little burrs from prying there, but overall the surface looks pretty good. A couple of scratches there trying to get that gasket off, but I think that'll polish up decent, and the new gasket should go on, and we should be good. Now I got to clean up the other side of it, the engine block side of it, and that's a pain in the butt because that's not close where it's handy and you can wash hands and clean up easy, and power's handy and all that. So gotta figure out how I'm gonna tackle that. All right, so I went over it with a scrubber and some paper towels and a little bit of gas, and I got the oil, don't crap off front and back. Most of the carbon out of the cylinders, not all of it, but most of it. The rest we're gonna burn out because that machine's gonna be working. And I'm just gonna grab a brush or some steel wool or something, go over the surface, get that cleaned down to steel, and then that should be good to go. I went over all the water jacket ports and oil ports and such with the air compressor, and blew those all out clean with the air line. So everything should be clean and open and ready for flow. I'm going to polish this up quick. I'll stick a straight edge on it and just check to make sure that it's not warped. I don't believe it is. And then I'm going to go up to the farm and get the other side of it cleaned up and hopefully get it back together ASAP so we can get some farming done. Because God knows that's all I've wanted to do for so long. Always good before you go to assemble one. You make sure the gasket actually fits. That looks like a solid match. Do like that. And that's a nice and well-made gasket. Aluminum on both sides that will fit a nice tight seal and hold good compression. That's a good step in the right direction, I think. So I don't have it polished up yet, but I just thought I would grab the straight edge quick. The surface is pretty clean, you know, it's plus or minus a couple mils at this point. So I thought I would just run a straight edge across and just see, make sure we're not warped or way out. That looks pretty good to me. You know, there's a little bit of gap, but I don't see any major warps there. Go crossways both ways and kind of shuffle and settle in. And that all seems good to me. I'll do one long way here just to see. That seems okay to me. So no warps, so that's nice. I think we can clean this up the rest of the way, stick a gasket in and put it back together, have a functioning machine. Let's roll. I'm not kidding when I say I've had my share of frustrations lately. I've probably banged my shins 1,000 times on steel, on tractors and hardware stuff in the last couple months. Head, same thing, back, shoulder, neck, elbow, knee, pick apart, I've slammed them. So here we are back at the machine, and I've started cleaning this up with a wire brush, which is making this go nice and easy. I'll clean up that other surface with a wire brush as well. I got a spinner one that goes in the drill here, makes life easy. The old 18 volt DeWalt still tripping. Not for much longer, that battery's pretty shot, but it'll get this job done, I think, and that's awesome because that makes this go a lot quicker than those hand brushes, which work but aren't much fun. All right, so here we are, mostly cleaned up. I got a few more spots to touch up there just to polish it nice before I put the gasket and head back on and start reassembling. I gotta clean up the threads on the studs there. Probably wipe up some of the oil that's left there and stuff, but most of the surface is good to go. Looks overall okay to me. That right side valve there is a little bit screwy. Those last two cylinders had some gunk around the valves, and I think that head gasket might have been leaking from the water jacket a little bit, a lot longer than I knew, and that's probably what caused some of that corrosion. I also do see, I think, some dirt and dust in there that got in. I attribute that to the air filter not being fully reassembled. I do have the new filter part for that now, so that'll go back on when this goes back together. So we'll have new spark plugs, new head gasket, new air filter, and hopefully we'll be functional for a while. Yeah, that's it. And I'm just going to give you another angle on those valves while I've got this open, so I can look at it as a reference and so you can see what's going on here. So I'll zoom in and I'll move this thing out of the way. You can see that like corrosion and burn there. It looks like valve burn, probably from yeah, I'm not even sure. I'm running too lean, maybe. I know this machine was running real lean when I first started pulling the brush hog and the disc. Now knowing about the head gasket issue, that's probably why it was running kind of lean and kind of weird. So knowing that, I'll end up tweaking the car back into the sweet spot again, I imagine. I ended up tweaking the carb a little bit hotter on fuel mix to get it to run nice and to have power. But my guess is it was probably just more about the head gasket issue than anything else. So I'm hoping all those little tweak issues that were showing up will clear up with this new gasket in place, and hopefully a clean running engine for a while. Let's cross our fingers. Huh? All right, went back and polished up again with the drill. I went around all the studs, cleaned them up, cleaned up the threads. Got the studs pretty well cleaned up. I feel like we're pretty dirt and debris free. I'm gonna get a gasket on this and get it back together. I'm gonna get a close-up of the stamp there before I do. Don't know much about Ford 9Ns yet, but I'm gonna look up what that stamp of the block means and where it was manufactured. I imagine it has something to do with that. So, cool. I guess we'll just take a look at the head quick here before it goes back on. Oh, I gotta clean that up still, don't I? All right, so I polished her up. That battery kicked the bucket on the drill. So onto the back up with the old brass wire brush and some good old-fashioned hand power. She's clean. I probably will clean out the carbon a little bit, but whatever, really. Just want 2 gasket surfaces to meet clean. So there's our nice new gasket in place. Now we're going to drop the head on, and then we start our torquing sequence. I don't have a torque wrench, so I'm going to try to do 33 pounds the first round and 55 the second. 1 cylinder head in place. We're getting there. All right, well, I'm running out of time, so I gotta take off for now. But I got it on and torqued down. Feels pretty solid. When I come back, I gotta put plugs on it and finish reassembling it, and then hopefully we have a running machine when I'm done. I don't know if I'll have the energy to get back to that tonight or not. Yeah, we'll see. But for now, at least I got the head on. It's torqued down with new gasket in place. I'm just gonna stick the 4 plugs in there so we don't get any moisture down in there. And then I gotta fly because I gotta start the work week. All right, so I decided to throw the plugs in quick before I go because I wanted them in. I just figured if I'm putting them in, I might as well tighten them in. So I tightened them in. So the plugs are in, and I put the top of the radiator back on. I haven't filled it yet. I'm gonna do that when I come back. I'm gonna bring something for a funnel so I can pour back in. And then hopefully by later this evening, we'll have a running, functioning tractor, and I can pull the Massey hoe up out of here, and that'll be free to do work again too. So that'll be nice. Start the new work week with working equipment again, we can hope. Quick sunset shot for you with clouds. It is a beautiful day out. All right, so I'm back the next day. Still don't have the Google Pixel back yet. Still filming in 1080. No big deal. I'm sure you can see just fine in 1080. I got it all cleaned up pretty well last night, and I couldn't remember. There were 2 studs here that were loose, and I tried pulling some of these other studs out, but they're in there so tight, I don't think it's worth screwing with. And I think where my leak was coming up through from between the gasket and the head and coming up through. So the 2 studs that are loose are this one and this one, if I'm remembering that correctly. I think so. So I'm going to pull those and put thread sealer on them so that we don't have a problem with those. And the rest, I'm just going to do the Permatex thing and put this thing back together with the gasket. And hopefully we'll torque it down and we'll have a running, functioning engine by the time it's all done. All right, went over the head again with some alcohol. Got it all cleaned up. Hopefully she'll go together. Okay, I've coated both with gasket, the Permatex gasket sealer, copper gasket sealer. My friend said to put it on the head and just assemble, but I'm reading the directions on the gasket sealer and it says to put it on both sides of the gasket. So I'm going to do that as a precaution, to make sure we fill all those holes. At least that's the hope. I hope that doesn't screw anything up. All right, so we got the copper gasket sealant on. We got the head back on, and I ran all the nuts down flush, and then I went back and I did the first torque round to 33 foot-pounds according to the torque pattern. And now I'm going to go back and do 55 foot-pounds on the same torque pattern. And that should set our head. And then I got to assemble the rest of the stuff. But I might actually let this sit overnight and cure and pick it up tomorrow. I want to make sure that this doesn't leak again. Well, alrighty, here we are. Back at the farm. I had a long, well, a good long work day, AutoCAD engineering and such. And now I'm back here to finish putting that head on. Got the new phone finally. They told me it would be here Friday. Didn't get here until Monday, but you know, holiday weekends and all that, I guess. Anyway, it's here. Let's have a look at the potatoes quick. My, aren't they growing right on? Well, it's nice to have the 4K camera back again, be able to make some really high quality stuff. Not that it matters for this sort of thing, but you know, it feels good to have the working phone and be able to text and phone call again, or whatever. It's set up overnight. There's a little bit of tack here still on the edge of this, but I did give it a slight wet coat before I finalized the assembly because I just want to make sure we sealed everything tight. I'm going to put I just put the radiator hose back on, but I got to tighten it down. And I'm going to put this one on and tighten it down, and then we'll fill it up and see if it holds water. That'll be our first. Well, so far so good. We're holding water. I got the radiator back full of fluid. Mostly full. A little head space in there. And the gasket doesn't appear to be leaking anywhere. So that's a whole lot better than last time. And I honestly just think I didn't have the right torque specs when I torqued it down because I didn't have a torque wrench. So improper procedure will give you a fail every time. So my stupid butt forgot to put this bracket on for the throttle linkage. So I had to pull I had the whole cowling back on here. I was putting it back together and then I realized I couldn't get to that to put it back on without the cowling out of the way, and then I was going to need the torque wrench because I'm going to have to torque these back down again. Pain in the butt, but 2 bolts. I hope this doesn't screw up my torque pattern, but I think because I tightened everything down and it sat overnight, should be okay. So I'm just retorquing these to 55. I have to say, it's a very satisfying feeling to feel that torque wrench set the torque setting you set, to feel that click. I don't know, there's something about satisfying about assembling machinery, I guess is what it is. Love the barn swallows patrolling for insects. Well, I hope you're praying with me. I cleaned up that nasty float bowl while I had it off. I got fresh fuel in it. Battery terminals hooked back up. The moment of truth. Let's find out. Well, holy crap, it started right up. No trouble at all. I mean, immediately. As soon as I turned the key, it started. And it runs so smooth now. Well, maybe not down at that idle level, but yeah. So we'll let her warm up and find out whether it holds. But man, she does sound nice. Running smoother than she has since I've had her. All right, well, I brought her up to hot. Let some of the grease and stuff smoke off. Let her cool down. I'm going to take a coffee break and I'll come back. I should put the air filter and the other pieces back on, get the cardboard up from under, make sure I haven't missed any tools or parts, and get it ready to rock and roll again. Yeehaw! It feels so good. Big thanks to my friend Dave for the loan of the torque wrench and the excellent information about putting it all back together. And big shout out to my friend, well, I won't even give your name, but you're out there and you know who you are. And I really appreciate the torque diagram and all the excellent advice as well. The Permatex work, dude. Thank you. Let's get you a close up of this holy basil, and I'm going to take a couple of sprigs of this with me. Because holy cow, it's amazing. And I guess it's time for me to start seeing some chefs. Go visit some chefs tomorrow and take them some holy basil samples. Alright, I'm going to go edit on this and we'll see what else happens today. Cheers. Well, I'll tell you what, that sunset is even more appetizing knowing I have working machinery again. And man, look at those pastel colors tonight, huh? Is that stellar or what? Look at that. That's just for you and me. Courtesy of the creator of this world. He's a cool dude, by the way. You should meet him. Alright, that's it for now. I'll probably be back. I mean, I just couldn't pass those colors up. I had to share them.